Well, good evening, and welcome to the pilot episode of Elliott Astro-Imaging, the weekly series. I am your host for tonight, and in this episode, we are going to go over DeepSky Stacker. One of the biggest questions a lot of people ask is, I was out there all night last night, I got my images, I downloaded them to my computer, or they're already on your computer, and you want to know, where do I put them, and how do I stack them? Well, DeepSky Stacker is your best option. Yes, I know, there are other options available, AutoStacker, Photoshop, PixInsight, and even Photoshop will actually do it too. But DeepSky Stacker is your best bet. And we're going to load the program right now, and I'm going to pull this up for you. Okay, DeepSky Stacker version 3.3.4. It is the latest version. You can find that right on the website. You just do a Google search for DeepSky Stacker, and it'll direct you right to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the picture files. Okay, now one of the last episodes I did was the Dumbbell Nebula, which was M27. I already have it loaded up here, and we're going to do the Orion camera. And I took 4 images of that one, which were 14-minute exposures, and we're just going to open them up right here. So you can see that the 4 images are loaded onto the bottom of the screen. It's split between 2. The top one is your preview screen. The bottom one is all your images that you have taken over that night. If you have multiple nights that you want to combine, you can always go to the Group tab, which is on the bottom, and you can keep creating groups. So, for instance, if I had to take 14 minutes exposures with this one, and then say I took 20 minutes the next night, you can put it into group, and it will actually group them together and actually separate them, so this way you don't combine them till the very end. Okay? So we'll go back to the main group. As you can see, the path where the actual file is located, the file name, the type, and eventually when you get to calibrations, it'll actually decipher whether it's a light type, or darks, or flats, dark flats, or even offset and bias frames. And that's what this little picture here is on there. Okay? The score is already on here because I've already stacked these. If you did not stack them and you took a brand new set of images and loaded them into DeepSky Stacker, you won't have anything on there. It'll just say NC for not checked. Your DX and your DY, that is location on the actual image. It'll take a couple of stars and actually watch the star to see if it moves, whether it's horizontal or vertical, either way. And then the angle. So it'll actually, for instance, if your guiding is not 100% accurate and the star starts to drift just a little bit, it'll actually change the angle of the actual image on each one to set it up. And you're going to notice when I stack these, the angle is going to change. The same thing with the DX and DY. The time what the image was taken, the size, which is the sensor. The bigger the sensor, the bigger the picture. For instance, as if I were to actually open this up and actually show you for the QHY, you can see the difference in the size of the picture because the QHY sensor is much, much bigger than the Orion sensor. So you can see. And just to get rid of it, you just go to remove, and then you don't have to worry about it. Then the depth. The depth is whether it's RGB or if it's the black and white. So these ones are RGB, and you can see it's 32-bit channel. The info, which is the information, it's a FIT file. The ISO, that's if you're taking it with a Canon or a Nikon. So you can actually have the ISO and you can have it sorted out. Your exposure time, which is 14 minutes. The FWHM, which is the full width, half maximum. The lower the number, the better. So if you start to see a huge spike in some of them, it means that the stars are starting to get out of focus, whether it be humidity, whether it be how hot it is outside, or a plane went through it, even you went through it, either way. And then the sky brightness, which is the percentage based off of 0 to 100. And then finally the number of stars. These will all show up once you stack the actual image itself. So that is the information on what each image is. What I like to do is go over each image individually, and at the top right you can actually change the histogram on each image so you can get an idea of what the image looks like. Sometimes with the sensors, the nebulosity, now this of course is a bright one, but if you were to get something like the Ring Nebula, Thor's helmet, something that is very tiny, very small, you want to change the histogram to see if you're in the right area. So I like to do that so you can actually see the image itself. Okay, and then I go over each image individually so you can see that each one is different for the color, but overall the stars don't move and everything is great for these. There was no plane that went through it or anything. There was no obstructions or anything, so each of the 4 images were good. If you've taken a whole bunch of them, go through them. It's really quick, very easy to do. So you just pick the best one that you see fit. Then the next thing I do is I actually click the top left, click and hold and drag till you get to where you want it to crop out the corners. Because I've noticed with some of my images, the corners seem to be a little oblong, and you get artifacts. For instance, if you're, or as I was telling everybody before, is that when the camera starts to shift a little bit, sometimes, even if it's minute, you're going to start seeing a little bit of artifacts on the edges, and it's going to start getting black around the corners. So I just get rid of it completely, and then you don't have to worry about it. So then you have this here. The next thing, of course, then would be the calibration frames, which is the dark flats, and then the offset and biases. We're not going to do those right now. All I'm just going to do is just the light frames. But how to do those is you would just go to darks, and you would select your darks from your calibration folders, and you would just go from there and add them in there. Then you just go and you check all. So it checks all the images. You could do them individually. You could do them all. Either way, whatever's better for you. From there, then you register your checked pictures. This comes up here. And I like to keep all these checked, which is your register already registered pictures, automatic detection of hot pixels, and stack after registering. And then the next thing is select the best of percentage pictures and to stack them. So if you have 70 to 100 pictures, or even 20 to 40 pictures, you want to get a percentage. The more you have, the less the percentage. If you have 4, I'm going to do 100%. If you're going to do 40, you probably might want to do 60 to 70%. That way it gives you the best images possible. So I just have it at 100. The next thing is you're going to do advanced. And then with the advanced, it's based off of percentage for the star detection threshold. And then what you do from there is you have it based off of percentage from 2% all the way to 98. You want to try to get it between 50 to 70 stars when you compute it. And with this one, it's at 66. Perfect. We're good to go. You can even reduce the noise by hitting the median filter. What that does is it actually takes the stars down even further. You could do that if you want. If you have a vast field, if you're doing wide field, where it has 6,000 stars, you might want to do it with this one. So from there, then you go to recommended settings. They may not work in all the situations, but they are often a good starting point. What that means is it's all based on personal opinion. It's based off of what you want to do. This, as I said, is just a tutorial to get you better to understand the basics of DeepSky Stacker. There is no right and there is no wrong, but this at least gives you an idea. You can click on the proposed link to change the setting accordingly. Settings that are already set are shown in green. If you are processing in narrowband images, especially with hydrogen alpha, you want to do the background calibration. We're not doing hydrogen alpha, so I don't have to worry about it. Stacking 4 light frames, you can either do average or median. Either way. I do average, good enough for me. And then the next one is if the results are looking too gray, you can click this one, but of course if you click this one, then the HA goes, so you just want to keep it just as this, and then you're set. The next thing is the stacking parameters, and since we made the custom rectangle here in red, this is already checked here. But you can do standard, mosaic, intersection, or custom rectangle. The next thing is enable 2x drizzle, and with the 2x drizzles, if you have a fast computer, definitely do it. Yeah, this one's a fast computer, so I don't have to worry about it, so I can definitely click this. The next one is align RGB channels in the final image. You could also do enable 3x drizzle, but you don't have to if you don't have a fast computer. And then, of course, a temporary file folder, you could do users, and then whatever. You can even set it to your desktop if you really wanted to. So like say for instance I just do this, hit desktop, hit OK, goes right to my desktop. And then you can reduce the worker thread's priority. You don't have to click it. And then you use all your processors, which is the best way to do it. The next one is you go to light. And with light, you could do average. And there's a little bit here. You could do median, kappa sigma, median kappa sigma, or auto adaptive weighted average. Or you could entropy weighted average, which is HDR, which is the high dynamic range. Or maximum. You like to just do it average. Then you don't have to worry about it. And the next thing is the alignment. Keep it automatic, but of course this gives you a little bit of detail on each one. As you can see there. And then there's no alignment at the end, but I like to keep it at automatic. Intermediate files, which is right here. You can do the calibrated for each frame. Don't do that. Because if you're going to be doing 200 to 300 images or even 75 to 80, it's going to create an actual file for each light frame, and it's going to be very confusing to you because it's going to create a cosmetic, and you don't want to do that. So just leave these, don't worry about it. And then you have the cosmetic. And with the cosmetic is detect and clean remaining hot pixels and the cold pixels. Replace the pixel value with the median. You can actually do it on an actual frame, and you can actually see the percentage on each hot and cold pixels based off of percentage, which is really nice. So you could test it. So you could actually bring this one down over here and you could test it. As you can see, the percentage went way down. This is what you want. So keep it as is. You don't have to really do much with it, but you can play around with it and see what the best one is. But definitely that is a great tool as to test on the first frame. Gives you an idea of what has hot pixels, what has cold pixels, and so on. And then, of course, you could save an image showing the clean for each light frame. Again, don't do that because it will save it on each one. That's more time to try to figure out what is what. And then the output, pretty self-explanatory. So we're set with that. So we're going to hit OK. Alright, and we're done with this. We're done with that. We go back to actions. Now, of course, it says don't forget to add the dark, flats, offset, and bias frames before stacking. We're not doing that right now, so it's in red. If you have them all, it'll be green, but you don't have to worry about it. So you hit OK. Then it'll give you the last and final review before you actually physically stack the images. So it'll tell you what you did, what you clicked, gives you how many minutes total for the actual time of what the images were, no offsets, darks, or flats, and then how much space you have on your computer. And from there, just hit OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to register all the pictures. It's going to stack all the pictures. It's going to save it. And then it's going to load it. And that is it for that. Now, what happens is when you see this, you're going to see a light image or a dark image. But like I was saying before, you can see on the edge here, you can see that it's sort of black on the edges because what happens is, as I said, with the camera turning and twisting when it's rotating as your mount is going and tracking, you're going to start getting a little bit of artifacts on the edges. Again, don't worry about that at all. So you look at this image and it's really light. Well, you go down to the bottom here and you're going to notice the red, green, and blue and K levels. So you want to get these colors, the little bump there, at about 35%. So you want to bring this to about 35, and you want to match the colors. Very simple, very easy to do. And as you notice that you can't get this here, so you use the arrows on the keyboard for the green. So you can see that it moves, but it just moves it just a little bit out to the right. Well, at that point, then you use the right side here, and you just slowly move it till you get all of the color together. Like that's perfect right there. And then you do the same thing with blue. Okay. Notice that it's not all the way on there, so then you just use this to bring all three colors together. You go down to the bottom here, and you're going to notice the red, green, and blue and K levels. So you want to get these colors, the little bump there, at about 35%. So you want to bring this to about 35, and you want to match the colors. Very simple, very easy to do. And as you notice that you can't get this here, so you use the arrows on the keyboard for the green. So you can see that it moves, but it just moves it just a little bit out to the right. Well, at that point, then you use the right side here, and you just slowly move it till you get all of the color together. Like that's perfect right there. And then you do the same thing with blue. Okay. Notice that it's not all the way on there, so then you just use this to bring all three colors together. Okay? And then you just hit apply. So now you're noticing that the image is starting to become a little bit more clear, and you can start to see the actual detail of the image. So the next thing you do is you go to the luminance. Okay? And then you have your darkness, your midtone, and your highlight. So what you want to do is you want to bring your darkness all the way to the bottom. And then your midtone, you want to try to get the middle of this S curve right at the bump. That is your best bet. So what I do is you bring down this till you start to see more of an S. And of course, the more you crank this, the more graininess it's going to be. So if I hit apply, look how, well, you're going to move this over here. But you're going to see how grainy it is. You can start to see the edges look horrible. So you want to get a nice medium. Usually about 7 degrees is usually the best. So you can start to see that the image is starting to look really nice. And then you get this here to be just about right at the dark point. And again, fiddling, getting it right where you need it to be is perfect. Then you have your highlights. So the bottom one, if you're doing galaxies, I would suggest not to crank this, because if you crank this like here, you can see that the stars look inverted. It looks pretty bad. You don't want to do that. You do not want to go over this line. So you bring it down just a little bit to make a nice little curve till you can see that it's just about meeting the top here at about 25%, and you just hit OK with that. So you can see that the stars look really, really nice. And then from there, you go to saturation. You don't want to blow it out. 20 is way too much saturation, as you can tell, for most of the images that I do. 15 is usually the best. It's not too much saturation, just right. Sometimes you might even want to do 13, because with this camera it likes to oversaturate some of the stars. So this is a nice common ground, and you're going to see some, of course, you're going to have some of the red, green, and blue in the hot pixels, because I didn't use dark and flats. Not a big deal. So from there, your image is done. And how to save it is you go to Save to Picture File. And you just save it. So you could do M027, and we'll just do Dumbbell Nebula. Okay. You can save it as a TIFF image for 16-bit, 32. I like to just keep it at 16. You're fine. Compression, don't do any compression. Leave it as none. And then the biggest one is you have an option. You can either apply the adjustments to the saved image, or you can embed the adjustments in the saved image but do not apply them. I always apply them to every image I do. I do not embed them. This way, if you're going to take it to Photoshop, PixInsight, anywhere, it'll already do all the stuff you just did here. It will implement it into your processing program. And we'll go over that in a future episode with Photoshop or PixInsight. We'll go over a couple of those for processing techniques. But you just hit save, and it will save it right to the actual folder, and you're done. And that's it. You have gotten the crash course of DeepSky Stacker. So if there's any questions that anyone has, this is the video to ask the questions, as I will answer them right away. And with that being said, I'm going to end this episode. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you can please hit the like and the subscribe button, and have a great night.